Hi guys and gals, Froggy here. This is my Ruger P95DC, and I'm going to put LPA target sights on it. They're adjustable windage and elevation on the rear, and they're like one of the other manufacturers called them fire sights. Uh, they have a light gathering filament. Fiber optic. Okay, they call it a fiber optic tube, little small like a piece of spaghetti tube, and they kind of light up. I'll show you later on when I get them installed. Right now I've just got the original sights, which is a post front that I painted, and the rear is not really adjustable at all, except for you could drift it left and right if you wanted to. But this is not intended to be a target pistol, but I want to just improve the sights a little bit on it. Okay? So if you need help getting your pistol disassembled this far, you need to go to another video. I think I might have one, but I'm just going to pick it up for the sake of brevity with the slide off. First, I'm going to try loosening up this Allen, and then I'm going to tap it. Now the directions say that there is a little bit of a taper on these, on which way you go out and which way you go in, so I'm going to follow that. Hold on. Okay, so I'm using a 2mm Allen, and in spite of what looks like some red Loctite on there, the screw was pretty loose. I mean, it didn't fall out yet, but so, and I'm not guaranteeing that's the right size, but 2mm got it out for me. Now I got to figure out which way to drift this original sight. Well, I'm back on this Ruger rear sight, trying to get the original out. It is moving. I think you can, if the focus is good enough there, you can see it's moving. This black part of the sight is outside the edge of the slide. And I'm putting a piece of tape on there to save the original sight. My brass pin is starting to round over, or peen over, and it's not a crappy, it's Mitutoyo, which is a decent brass pin. It's just that these Ruger sights are way, way, way tight. And, you know, I already showed you, I've got the Allen set screw out of there. And I'm up to a 24-pound hammer. So I haven't damaged anything yet. I've got a bench block, which I recommend. So it's not rotating. It's not, doesn't have anything soft underneath it. It's just really, really tight. I'm going to keep hitting on it. Well, I went up to my 1/4-inch brass punch, and getting a little bit more, and it's probably going to let go all at once. You have to be patient with this, all I can tell you. So keep checking and make sure with your bench block that you're not hammering the sight up against something solid. That's the whole point of the bench block, to leave an empty space underneath so you can hit it out. And it's coming along. I'm finding that many lighter hits, and I don't mean light because they're really pretty sturdy hits, but instead of one big bang, the tapping rather than a big bang is working for me. So I just want to show you how far I've got it out, and it's still tight, 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 tight. Still tight. Gonna let go pretty soon. Check it out. Still tight. Well, there she went, finally. Wow. There's a little there's a pin underneath there. I don't know what it is. I will figure it out and tell you. I don't think it's damaged or anything. I just slid the sight off over the top of it. So let's find out. Oh, I'm sorry, I was out of frame. This little pin here is pushed down by the sight when the sight is in position, and I will find out what that pin is and I'll tell you. There's the underside of the sight, so it's just dead flat and smooth. So that's the hole for the set screw right there, which if you had it installed, we're talking about something like this. So no damage has been done there, but I wish I had known that was there just for the heck of it. There's very, very little information about changing rear sights on a P95. So go figure. That's why I'm doing it for you guys and gals, so that you can have this information easily available. Okay? But I would not recommend doing this unless you have a bench block, a bunch of hammers, and some good brass drift pins. Otherwise, don't try this. So I want to give you some factual information about whether this dovetail is tapered or not, and whether it should go in or out a certain way. So I mic'd this side is 13.4, and take my word for it, the other side, I'm trying to get my finger in there, that's 14.6. So it's a little over 1 millimeter wider, the entrance to the dovetail. So put the new sight in that way, take the old sight out that way. And, you know, all the BS that you see all over the place, this is my bench, my micrometer, my gun. So I'm giving you some real hard facts here. Okay, it's not much of a difference, but I think it does make a difference. And could you get it out that way? Yeah, probably. And it would be a little bit harder, maybe. So take it out that way, put it in that way. Okay? So, right in the middle of your screen, KV02102, that's the firing pin block. And this is a P95 DPR, and mine is a P95 DC, but this is all I've got for the exploded view. So, KV02102, firing pin block. Okay? So I guess that's something to do with if you dry fire it, firing pin block, or it's part of. See, this is a decocker gun. It doesn't have a safety on it. So when you press the decocker, I am thinking that this has something to do with blocking the firing pin. And let me know. Somebody who knows more about these than I do, put it down there in the comments. I would appreciate it. Here's some more about the firing pin, internal firing pin block right here. And also, it says to always use the decocker to decock the hammer. Don't try to do it, you know, obviously don't try to do it by pulling the trigger and then holding your fingers on the hammer. That would be, you know, they say about cleaning up the gene pool, stupid people hurt themselves and take themselves out of the gene pool. Anyway, this is not about that. This is about changing out the sights, which I am very happy to say I'm halfway done on the rear. The front I'm going to have to do some drilling, because the one that I bought, and most of them I guess, do not come with these holes drilled in it. And I'm thinking it'll come out a lot easier because you just drift out those roll pins. I think the back one's going to be the hard one, and the front, except for the drilling part, will be the easier one. You know, I recently came across something that I really, really like a lot for working on my guns. This is for doing women's nails, fingernails, and it's a hard piece of wood with a very sharp, like a chisel end to it. There, it shows up a little better against that blue. And you can really get into some tight spots and use some alcohol or some hops or something, and clean up the areas where you're going to work, where you're going to put that new sight in. Here's what that firing pin block looks like when you take it out. And I'm not going to be doing anything with that at all, but it just drops in there, and then when I put the new sight in, I'm just going to push down on it and push the sight over it. But just for your information, there it is. Now this new sight, which I think I showed you, it's an LPA sight specific to the P95. It has two set screws, two littler ones instead of one big one. You can see where they come through on the bottom, and then that other hole in the middle, I think it's just a clearance hole for the adjuster screw. So I'm going to test fit that right now and see how tight it's going to be, or see how far it goes in. Well, it's tight. It wouldn't go in very much at all, just using your finger. So what I'm going to do, a couple of things. I'm going to take this out until I've test fitted it a couple of times, because otherwise I have to press this down every time it comes in and out. Because I know I'm going to have to either file on this hole, or probably file on the sight, the new rear sight, file it down to get it to go in. The other thing I'm thinking about doing is taking this sight apart, which is probably just this drift pin in the front, and then unscrew that. That's not a clearance hole, actually. It's a threaded hole in the middle, and that's the thread that this adjustment screw goes up and down on, and then there's a spring right about there underneath there. So I may see how easy it is to take this apart, and then I'll just be able to do my filing and fitting with the bottom part of the sight. You know what I mean? Okay, so the adjustment screw came out pretty easy, and now it's just this roll pin in the front. You can't lift it all the way up because of clearance, but when you take the roll pin out, there'll just be that spring there, I think. Well, my 1/16 punch is starting to bend, and I wasn't hitting it that hard, so I'll have to come up with something a little bit sturdier. It is starting to come out. I might just pull it with some pliers. Well, I took an old Allen out of my miscellaneous bag there, and used that to hammer out the drift pin. Okay, and there's the spring I was telling you about. Might be two springs, actually. Looks like a pretty nicely made sight. So anyway, now I can hammer away on this part and get it into the dovetail, and not worry about those little delicate light tubes there and the adjustments and all that. Okay, so I got the roll pin out, tapping with this, using the block, and I'm going to take these two little Allen set screws out. They're loose. LPA gives you a specific Allen for those. Don't lose it. And then I'm down to a bare dovetail piece. Then I think I'll call it a day till next time I want to work. By the way, I do have a video on me installing a Williams target sights on my Mark II Ruger. And if I recall correctly, there was a lot more meat on that Williams sight. I'm talking about contact area in the dovetail. So this is very different. And just full disclosure, so you know, I'm not being paid by either one of those companies. Okie dokie, we're back on this site, and I'm test fitting this. I showed you the comparison between the original one and the contact area and the new one. I think it's going to be all right. I'm using the plastic end of this hammer. I'm tapping it in. I'm going to see where it gets marked by the metal of this dovetail on the slide versus the metal on the dovetail on the sight, and then I'll do a little filing, sanding if I need to. Let's tap it a few times. I want to show you where I'm hammering. Right here. This is the bottommost part, the base. I'm not hammering up here, although it is one solid piece of metal, but I'm directing the force here, okay, with the plastic end of the hammer. And now I got it about a third of the way in, and I tapped it out. Hold on. So the front edge, this is the front, as if it was pointing to the muzzle end of the gun. The front edge is where it's marking the most. It's shaving a little piece of metal right there. You can see it. And the other side, not much. So there's the other side, and where the tip of my thumb is pointing, that's the front edge. So it's not deforming the metal much there. Oops, sorry. So there, not much. There, I'm looking through the camera, so I'm having a little trouble orienting. That's where I'm going to do my filing, and I'm going to file across. Yeah, I'm going to file across the whole length of it, not just this. But I think I need to take a, like, not even maybe a tenth of a millimeter, maybe 1/10 of a millimeter off of there. That's not very much. But that's what I'm going to try and do with my triangle file, a diamond file. So let's do that. So what I found worked best for me was I put the file in my vise, and then I took the sight. Let me find the right place. All right. Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty good focus, I think. I took the sight like this. You want to keep that same angle, okay? You don't want to change the angle, that or that. You want to keep the same angle. And I just rubbed it like that a dozen times maybe. I got that burr off, and then I took a little bit off there, all over pretty much. This might even go in this next try. I'm gonna put a little bit of lube on it to make it go in. You don't want to take too much, because then it'll be loose and it'll come loose. And remember, I got 2 set screws, and I'll probably put some Loctite, some blue Loctite in those. Now, if you did take too much off and you ended up when you're firing the gun and it moves on you, you could take it out and put red Loctite all over the place and put it back in. Chances are that would fix it if it's only loose a little tiny bit. I'm just giving you a heads up for future, okay? You know, actually, I'm going to lube it with some alcohol, so that'll be sort of a lubricant for a few moments until it dries off. That way I'm not leaving any lubricant in those dovetails, but it will give me a little bit of a slide to tap it in. Okay, still tapping the same way, right on that little narrow base there. I got it about halfway in, and remember that firing pin stop has to go back in before it's final. About halfway, and I'm hammering pretty solid blows with the plastic end on the block on my bench. Don't put any cushioning in between, okay? Because you need to transfer that force to the sight through the dovetail. I'm going to take it out now and file it a little bit more, and then I'll go one more time. If it looks like it's going to go all the way, I'll take it out, put the firing pin block in, and then do my final. Okay? Mostly the burr, where are you? All right, there. The burr is on the leading edge, the front edge, a little bit starting on that back edge. So I'm going to file that some more, and that a little bit. Same way on the file that is in the vise. It's about halfway, and medium banging on it with the hammer. I would say not banging real hard. So I'm going to trim it one more time, and don't ask me how many tenths of a millimeter I took off, because I really can't tell you that. It's just light filing with a diamond file, and I think I did it. This is the third, or it might be the fourth time. You can go back and count. I'm glad I took the sight apart, because every time I knock it out of there, it kind of goes flying all over the place. I don't know if those little fiber optic pieces would have held up. So I would suggest that. Okay, I'm going to put the hammer, the firing pin stop or the hammer stop, sorry, whichever it's correctly called. I'm going to put a little shooter grease just on the spring, just a touch of it, okay, so that it'll move. It goes down in that hole there, okay? I don't want to fill it up with oil, but this grease I think is pretty good. I wrapped some painter's tape around there to keep this decock lever out of the way, because it's spring loaded. It wants to come back up here. And also I colored that place I want to hit with a Sharpie. So I'm about 2/3 of the way in. I got about 1/8 of an inch to go, I would say, maybe a hair more. Well, I got it that close, and I'm going to take it out and file it one more time. It's just getting too hard to hammer on it and move it. So, what can I tell you? Don't try to force it. One of the other important things is to make sure that your force, the blow from the hammer, and I went to a bigger hammer with a brass punch, make sure that your force is going in the right direction. If it's moving or rolling or slipping or anything, so I put it up against the vise, and I put the slide like that instead of off the end like that, and that directs the force a little better. Hey guys and girls, Froggy back. I decided to buy this tool before I destroyed either the rear sight or the slide. Even, you know, when you try the bigger hammer and the bigger hammer doesn't work, you need to step back and rethink the whole thing. So, this company, so far so good. I watched a few videos on how to run it. It said put a little oil on it before every time you use it, so I'm oiling it right now. Just put a drop and then run the threads all the way back and forth. One other thing I also did, which they don't tell you, but I greased up these rails where this piece slides on that rail, so I put some grease in there, and also on that one. See, it has the same construction, so I put grease on those rails just so it'll make it slide easier. So a little oil on the threads, a little grease on the rails. Now I'm gonna clamp it onto my bench. I'll put some something in the comments on all these tools. I'm going to use these clamps. Pretty good little quick Harbor Freight clamps. Well, if you want to roll back a little bit, you can see that it did move it a little bit. I'm having trouble with the slide twisting in the tool like this as pressure is applied, and mostly, well, partially it's because I've got this decocker. I might have to take this decocker off. I'm going to try one more time without taking the decocker off, because I don't want to clamp down too tight and damage the decocker. So I'm clamping down what I can. And let me try it one more time. It moved a little bit. I'm going to have to take the decocker off. I don't want to put any more pressure on it than what I'm doing right now. It's not going all the way out. Okay, I am getting into removing the decock levers, which is going to also include the extractor, firing pin, and a few other things. I'm not going to try and teach you how to do that. There's a good video. If you look for P95DC disassembly and look through a few of those, you'll find it. So I'm mainly doing this for the sight replacement. So I'm going to go off camera for this. I am going to show you a couple of little tips that the guy who does the other video doesn't really show you. When you try to get this pin out to get the left side decocker off, the pin has a little lip on each side. Right there, there's a lip, and inside there's a lip. So when you're pressing this leaf spring down, when you take the tension off, it won't just fall out. You have to, I use a little tweezers to kind of grab it and shove it that way. And then once you get that lip laying onto the leaf spring, you can grab this side with your fingernails, okay? Not showing you the whole thing, just that little tip. Now you can see it there. It has 1, 2, 3 little raised pieces on the pin. And now the leaf spring is loose. Watch out it doesn't go flying. Now I'm going to be able to get the left side decocker out. Okay, so I suggest again that you go to that other video. I've got both of the decocks off now. That's the firing pin. Those are the two decock levers. That's the extractor, okay? And then the leaf spring and that other pin that we got out. So now I'm going to stick this back in that rear sight drifter or rear sight mover, and I should be able to clamp it a little bit tighter now. Okay? I'm going to tape this up again. Well, I'm still getting some tilting like that as I put the pressure this way. And when it tilts, this part of the sight, right, let me show you. This part of the sight right here starts to hit the tool. So I've got to keep going up so that it'll go over the edge of the tool. So I'm raising up the whole platform using this screw. The problem with this sight mover is this bottom platform is tilting as the pressure is applied to the sight by this piece here. No matter how hard I clamp it there and with the top, the bottom platform is tilting. And then that makes the sight want to go into this piece of the tool. So I'm going to take a picture of this to send to them, I guess. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it out or not. Well, this is the biggest, hold on. Sorry, that was the UPS guy. So, I've got it moving. That's the hammer I'm using. I'm using brass, so I'm not damaging much. I'm really kind of I'm marring the finish on this sight, but I think I'll be able to paint it black again. It does look like it's deforming. I cannot believe how this is stuck in there, but I'm moving it with that big hammer. That's probably more than a 2-pound hammer. Maybe it's 2.5. Well, finally it popped. I will not repeat the choice words I've been using. I may try and use this to put this back in after I shave down some dimension on it. Obviously it needs to be made smaller to fit into that dovetail. And wow, that was something else. That was really stuck. I think I know how I got it stuck, because when you're putting it in, you've got more capability to hammer on it harder. But when you're trying to get it out because it didn't quite work, it's just a little, kind of like a smaller area or a smaller place to work on to get power to move it out. Anyway, I'm going to leave this gun disassembled until I get this sight back in where I want it to be, and then I'll do a little bit of video on putting it back together, okay? There's basically not a mark on the slide, which is either a tribute to Ruger or the way I wrapped it, or a little of both. I did bend this as I hammered it out, but I think it'll be all right. I think I just have to probably grind that down or file that down. It should be flat all the way across. The top, which will hold the rest of the rear sight, looks okay. I think I showed this before, but just to repeat, the dovetail is wider on this side, so you want to come out with the sight that way and go in that way. Okay, I just measured it with where'd my tool go? Oh, right there. I just measured it. I just tried to test fit, and it's still a little tight to me. I use this tool. One thing I found out about this tool is when you're removing the sight going that way on this gun, it doesn't quite push far enough to get the sight all the way out. I had to take my brass punch and knock it out. So it's a couple problems with this. This distance here is not enough, and the table tilts. This table, I'll call it a table, it tilts. So that's going back. I'm going to knock off today. This has been quite an ordeal. Okay, guys and gals, I test fitted it a couple of times. I've used a couple of files to trim the sight, and that little bend that I had in there from the excruciating removal, I filed that off so everything's nice and flat there. And I filed here with a triangle file and there with a triangle file. And like I said, I test fit it, and it's going out, in and out, smoothly with pressure from this small hammer. Okay, so it's ready to go. I think I'm going to try to put some coating on this, a black coating, even though the top part of it, what's going to show, is mostly in pretty good shape. It's got a little bit of brass mark on there, a little bit of aluminum mark. But I might clean this up and try and put some kind of a coating. This is one coating, but it's mainly for really rusty, rust, something that has rust on it like that. And this doesn't really have any rust, so I may research a little bit and try to come up with a coating for this. And then this slide is stripped as far as you can go. There is not another piece you can take off of this slide. So I guess I will show you a little bit about putting it back together. This is going to be a really long video. This could be almost an hour or 45 minutes maybe. I'm going to clean this up. It's completely nice and undamaged. And got to clean all those nooks and crannies and crevices to make sure there's not any filings left in there. So let me do a little research now on what I can coat this with, and I'll get back. Okay, here we go. I painted the site with some paint that is supposed to combine with rust. I'll show you. Okay, this one goes on clear and then it darkens almost to black. There was no rust on the site, but it makes a good undercoat, if you want to call it that. And then I use this flat black. It's actually primer, which I thought would be a good finish on it. And it came out pretty nice flat black. I already test fit it. We're going to try to push it in using this pusher. Now, if you've stripped your slide down as far as I have, don't forget to put your firing pin stop back in there. I covered the site up with tape, and I'm using my block and the nylon and the brass hammer to tap it in. And now I've got it in about almost halfway, and I'm going to try the pusher. Okay, it looks like it's going on pretty decent. I put a little pipe on this lever to get some extra torque on it. It's tilting a little bit, which is the design of this pusher that I don't like very well. And you can see from this space here, I'm about 1/4 inch from being centered. So let's push a little more. Okay, it's still going in. I got about 1/8 to go. I could have even trimmed some more off of this site. It's going in pretty hard. This baby is not going to move one bit once I get it in there, but it's a fully adjustable rear sight, so I don't actually have to get it right to the hair centered. Yeah, I can see I went too far, so I'm going to go back about 1/16. Okay, actually, now I am being able to move it a little bit easier. Easier is not easy, trust me, but move it back and forth with just like 1/4 of a turn of this, and I think I've got it. Let's take it out and have a look. Okay, to my eye, it's a couple of tenths of a millimeter to the left, but I'm going to put a caliper on it. Okay, so I got 3.48 and 3.59. So that's 1/10 of a millimeter. And I'm going to call that good because it's an adjustable sight. Even if it was a fixed sight, I would take it to the range and shoot it first before I messed around with moving this anymore. Because, there are other variables. So that is good, guys and gals. I'm going to put this back together. Then we're going to work on the front sight. The front sight is definitely going to be another video because this one is long enough. Okay, let's put the sight back together. I've got a little blue tape residue on here. I'm going to take some purple power and water, 50-50, and a towel, and see if I can get that little residue of blue tape off. Okay, that's decent. Remember, don't use any solvent that's going to take your paint finish off. This is just water-based stuff that I mixed up. Okay, these are the parts. I kind of laid them out. Maybe not 100% accurate, but that's how they're going to go in. Firing pin, the leaf spring, that little pin that is so hard to get out and get back in, the two decockers and the extractor. So let's put them all back in. So I'm going to put a very light coating of oil on the firing pin, and all these parts going back together. Don't let it be dripping with oil, just a light coating of oil. If you want to go synthetic, or if you want to go like a dry powder lube, those are your personal choices. So I'm not telling you what kind of oil to use. Now, some of these places where contact is made, metal to metal, I'm going to use grease instead of oil. There's a little tip right there. Excuse the noise outside. That's the yard dudes. That goes to the right side. That's a little bit of a hard camera shot, but press it in till it's about flush with where my fingernail is right there, and then put the left decocker in. See the left decocker? I'm moving it. That holds the firing pin in. Okay, you're going to drop the leaf spring in. Flip the slide over first. Drop the leaf spring in. The long arm of the leaf spring goes down, and the end right there where I'm touching, the end goes under a little ledge in there. So just, sorry, I get a little out of frame. There, I just tapped it down. So just drop it in. Little ledge under there, it goes under the ledge. Make sure it sits down. Okay, here's a tricky part now. This little pin that we had a lot of trouble getting out has got to go back in. That hole there. And to get it in, you have to depress the leaf spring. I'm going to use some kind of a screwdriver or something. And then you have to put that in, and the skinny end of it, there's a skinny end and a thicker end. The skinny end goes in first. Okay, I'm going to need two hands to do this, but I'm just going to depress down, like right there, and shove it in. I'm going to put a little grease on this too. The way I've been greasing is to squirt a little bit out on this paper towel, and then mash the end of an old toothbrush in it, and then use that to spread it onto the parts. So here's what worked for me. I took a little awl tool, and I put that down in the groove, which actually, see if I can show you, right like that. And that left some room for me to get this pin started on the side. So once I got it started on the side, it would hold the leaf spring down. Here, and press it down more, pretty much as hard as I could press it down, and then I finished inserting the pin. So the pin has a little groove in the middle of the pin, and that groove has to be on both sides of that leaf spring. Okay, you got it? Also, the bench block helped keep everything from shifting around. Okay, so put the right decocker lever in, and you can look inside and see how it lines up and everything. And this is where that little tab that was on the side of the firing pin comes into play. And then test it to make sure that it moves. And then the extractor is what's going to hold that in. Now, it should be obvious to you the orientation of the extractor, okay, because it's got that piece has got to grab onto the rim of the brass. If it's not obvious to you, you shouldn't really be doing this probably. So I'm going to go from the bottom side of the slide, push it in there. That's going to hold this decocker side in. It's going to hold it in. So you get it in about that far, and then you're going to take a tool probably and push right in the middle of your screen there. Push on that, push towards the back of the slide, and that should have like a little kind of click or pop in. Okay, it should look like that. Pretty flush right here. If it's not pretty flush right there, then you didn't shove it all the way back in. So that puts your slide back together. Check your decocker. Push on this firing pin block. Make sure that spring goes up and down there. That's it. Now I'm going to go back to the slide. The sight. Put the sight back together. Okay, so we've got our 2 set screws there. I'm going to put a little blue Loctite on them. All right, on the ends, although I don't think they're necessary. This rear sight is not moving anywhere at all. But they go in those 2 holes there on the outside. There, I think you can see them there, the 2 on the outside. The one in the middle is for the adjuster screw. This rear sight has some springs. I think it's 2 springs, whoops. And I taped them together with the sight so I wouldn't lose them. And this is an Allen for the LPA. I marked them for the LPA sight. And this is just the right size to push that roll pin. This is a roll pin that goes there. Now I did get some actual real roll pin punches, roll pin pushers, whatever you call them. So I might have a size that small. We'll see. I got a new bottle of Loctite. It's a red container, but this is blue. And it's got a really neat applicator. This little piece moves up and down about 1/4 inch and shuts it off. So you put it back like this, you let it drain for a few minutes, then you push that down, and it should help from the tip getting clogged. Okay, and see how nice, if I can focus. My goodness, not wanting to focus. There, I think that's pretty good. You see how nice I put just a little dab on the end of each of these set screws. All right, I'm going to put them in. Now I'm going to tell you, because of the difficulty or the pressure or what I had to do to drive this sight on, I think I actually compressed these set screw holes a little bit because it's going in kind of hard. So I backed it out. It's not cross-threaded. It's just going in hard the whole time. So if you beat on this sight really hard to get it in, you might think you're cross-threading these Allens, but you're not. You just narrowed up the hole a little bit, the threaded hole. Okay, so I was right. 2 springs on the bottom side of the sight, a roll pin, adjuster, and we're done. So the roll pin has to go in first, but you need to have those little springs underneath there because it'll be hard to get them in afterwards. Okay, so we got one last issue here. And then again, it comes back to the beating I had to give this sight and the fitting and everything. This space here is narrowed up, so this sight is a little tight. It's very tight going in and out. I can shove it in, but it's not supposed to be tight like that. So I'm going to have to file something off of here, either this or this part. I think it'd be easier to file this. you can maybe see the marks. See little wear, not wear marks, but the fit marks there and there. So I'm gonna have to file it. And you know, I gotta say, LPA, you could have done a little better job with the dovetail matching the Ruger P95. So for any of you guys or gals that are going to be fitting one of these on, you're going to have to do a lot of filing and test fit. File and test fit so that it's going in pretty decently before you put your final push on there. All right, so I'm going to get my file out. So what I did is I put my my little tiny Allen in there, and I'm going to shove this up and down a few times so I can see where I have to take off some material. Well, I did not have to take too much. That's almost got it, maybe, you know, a dozen or 20 strokes of my small file on each side. Little triangle file like this. I'm going to take a magic marker and blacken up all this and then run it up and down a few times again and see there's just a tiny little catch in it, but actually it's pretty good. Mostly right there up closest to my thumb. Right there you see that little shiny, and a little bit on the bottom there. Pretty good on the other side. Okay? Okay, I think we're good. See, this roll pin is going to tighten things up a little bit anyway. And that has got almost zero resistance there. And then it's going to be under spring tension, you know, when you're adjusting it. So I'm going to call that good. I'm going to spray this with a little, I'm going to clean it with acetone and then spray it with a little flat black, or the same stuff that I used on the rest of the slide here. Just, I mean, it's not going to show, but just to protect it from rust. Okay, so I taped it up, and I'm just going to shoot some spray paint on there. Okay, I got the rear sight back together. Remember, there's two springs underneath there. The way I did it was inverted to start. Then I had a small Allen that was holding the moving part of the sight in the proper location, and I had that taped up, made a little platform. So imagine this is up underneath like that, holding this movable part of the sight in the proper position. Then I took the roll pin from the top. I taped this so it wouldn't fall out. I just taped it so it could move a little bit. I started the roll pin with the special tool that has a little rounded end on it, and then I finished the roll pin with a regular punch, and it got a little bit deformed, so I took some pliers and I kind of pushed the roll pin back into shape, and it went in pretty easy. So that rear sight is done now, and after the paint dries on that front sight, I'm going to put that one in there and show it to you. This is a shot of my computer screen. So I had a problem with my original phone camera got broken, so I had to use my backup phone camera, and now I've got my original phone camera back. Anyway, long story short, this was way too long. I apologize, but there is good information in here if you're willing to stick with it. This is the end of the rear sight. I've got a separate video on the front sight. Give me a thumbs up or a like if this helps you out. Subscribe to my channel if you want more from Froggy. Ring the bell if you want notifications. Be safe, have fun. Froggy out. Bye-bye. And again, sorry this was so long. I was learning as I went along, and Just passing along my tips to you. Bye-bye.